The desert wind carried whispers of mesquite and dust through the town of Redemption Ridge, a place where broken souls came to hide and wounded hearts came to heal. It was here, on a Saturday night thick with August heat, that Maria Blackhawk sat alone at the corner table of the Silver Spur Saloon, nursing her third whiskey and the weight of a secret that had been crushing her chest for nearly 2 years. She wasn't supposed to be here. Her grandmother would have words, sharp ones, about an Apache woman drinking alone in a cowboy bar. But Maria had spent her whole life doing what was expected, being who everyone needed her to be, and tonight, with the amber liquid warming her blood and loosening the iron grip she kept on her heart, she was tired of pretending. Across the smoke-hazed room, she watched him. Jake Morrison, the cowboy who'd wandered into town 18 months ago with nothing but a horse, a worn saddle, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much sorrow for someone so young. He was playing pool with the ranch hands, his laugh echoing above the jukebox, and every time that sound reached her ears, Maria felt her carefully constructed walls crack just a little more. She'd loved him from the moment he dismounted that paint horse in front of her grandmother's trading post, tipping his hat with a smile that could melt winter snow. But she'd never said a word. How could she? She was Maria Blackhawk, daughter of the reservation, granddaughter of a medicine woman, keeper of traditions and expectations. And he was just passing through, a drifter looking for work, a man who would leave like all the others eventually did. So she'd buried her feelings deep, helped him find work at the Double R Ranch, watched from a distance as he built a life in their small town, and told herself that loving him silently was enough. It had to be enough. But whiskey has a way of unearthing buried truths. You gonna stare holes through that man all night, or you gonna do something about it? The bartender, old Lou, set another glass in front of her, though she hadn't asked for it. Don't know what you're talking about, Maria muttered, but her words slurred just enough to betray her. Lou chuckled, a sound like gravel in a tin can. Girl, I've been pouring drinks in this town for 40 years. I know the look of someone carrying a torch that's about to burn them up from the inside. Maria lifted the fresh glass, letting the whiskey burn down her throat. The room tilted slightly, and with it, her resolve began to crumble. She thought about her grandmother's words, fear is just love that hasn't found its voice yet. She thought about all the nights she'd lain awake, imagining what it would feel like to tell him the truth. She thought about regret, and how it tasted bitter than any whiskey ever could. Before she could talk herself out of it, before the rational part of her brain could wrestle back control, Maria stood. The room swayed, but she steadied herself against the table and walked across the scarred wooden floor toward the pool tables. Each step felt like walking through water, but she kept moving. Jake looked up as she approached, his green eyes catching the neon light. Maria. Haven't seen you in here before. His smile was genuine, warm, the same smile that had been haunting her dreams for months. Need to talk to you, she said, her voice louder than she'd intended. The pool players paused, looking over with undisguised interest. In a small town like Redemption Ridge, entertainment came in whatever form it presented itself. Sure thing. Jake set down his pool cue, concern flickering across his face. You okay? You need me to call someone? I liked you from the start, the words tumbled out before she could stop them, before she could shape them into something less raw, less true. The drunk Apache girl confessed what sober Maria had locked away for so long. From the very first day. When you rode into town looking lost and I gave you directions to the ranch. I've liked you every single day since then. Loved you, maybe. Probably. I don't know the difference anymore because I've been hiding it so long. The saloon went quiet. Even the jukebox seemed to hold its breath. Jake stared at her, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched between them like a chasm, and Maria felt her face burn with something that had nothing to do with alcohol. What had she done? Why had she let the whiskey speak truths that were supposed to stay buried? Then why hide it? The cowboy asked, his voice so soft she almost didn't hear him. He took a step closer, and she could see something shifting in his eyes, surprise, yes, but also something else, something that made her heart stutter. Maria, why didn't you say anything?" She laughed, but it came out bitter. "Because you're you, and I'm me. Because you're a cowboy passing through, and I'm the girl whose roots go so deep in this desert they'll never pull free. Because I watched my mother love a man who left, and my grandmother love a man who stayed but wished he hadn't, and I learned that sometimes it's safer to love from a distance than risk getting destroyed up close. You think I'm passing through?" Jake's voice rose with something that sounded like frustration. He ran a hand through his sandy hair, a gesture she'd seen him make 100 times when he was working through something difficult. "Maria, I bought property here. Put down roots. I've been building a house on that land overlooking the canyon for the last 6 months." Maria blinked, the alcohol making his words hard to process. "What?" "I stayed," he said simply. "I stayed because of you." The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet, but this time it had nothing to do with whiskey. "That doesn't make sense. You never said anything either." Jake laughed, but it wasn't his usual easy sound. It was rough, tinged with regret. "How could I? You're Maria Blackhawk. You're respected on the reservation, you run your grandmother's business, you're smart and strong and so damn beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes. And I'm just a cowboy with a past he's running from and a future he's trying to build from scratch. I figured you'd never see me as anything more than the drifter who needed directions. So we've both been idiots," Maria said, and despite everything, the whiskey, the fear, the 2 years of wasted time, she started to laugh. Really laugh, the kind that came from deep in the belly and shook the shoulders. Jake joined her, and the sound of their combined laughter filled the saloon, breaking the tension that had held everyone frozen. Lou started clapping, and then the whole bar erupted in applause and whoops. "I think we have," Jake agreed, still chuckling. Then his expression grew serious, and he reached out to gently take her hand. His palm was calloused from ranch work, warm and solid against hers. "But we don't have to keep being idiots. Not unless you want to." The morning sun streamed through Maria's bedroom window with the kind of brightness that felt personal, like nature itself was punishing her for last night's whiskey confession. Her head throbbed with each heartbeat, and her mouth tasted like she'd been chewing on saddle leather. But underneath the physical misery was something else, a flutter of hope mixed with absolute mortification. She'd told him. Dear God, she'd actually told Jake Morrison that she loved him. In front of half the town. While drunk. Maria groaned and pulled the pillow over her face, wishing she could simply cease to exist. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, the 5th time in the last hour. She'd been ignoring it, afraid to face whatever gossip or ridicule was surely spreading through Redemption Ridge like wildfire. But the buzzing persisted, insistent as a mosquito. Finally, she grabbed the phone and squinted at the screen through one eye. Text messages from her cousin, her friend Sarah, even old Lou from the bar. But the most recent was from a number she knew by heart, though she'd never had the courage to actually use it. "Don't hide from me now. Not after you were so brave last night. I'm at your grandmother's trading post. Come when you're ready. I'll wait as long as it takes. Jake." Maria's heart did something complicated in her chest. She sat up too quickly, regretted it immediately as the room spun, then forced herself out of bed. Whatever happened next, she owed it to herself, and to him, to face it sober and clear-eyed. An hour later, showered and fortified with enough coffee to jumpstart a dead engine, Maria pulled her truck into the dusty parking lot of Blackhawk Trading Post. Jake's truck was there, and he was sitting on the porch steps, hat in his hands, looking as nervous as she felt. He stood when he saw her, and for a moment they just looked at each other across the distance of the parking lot. Then Maria took a breath and walked toward him, each step feeling like both the hardest and most natural thing she'd ever done. "I'm sorry," she started, but he held up his hand. "Don't," Jake said firmly. "Don't you dare apologize for telling me the truth. Don't apologize for being brave enough to say what I've been too chicken shit to say for almost 2 years." Maria stopped at the bottom of the steps, looking up at him. In the clear morning light, she could see the dark circles under his eyes. "Did you sleep at all?" "Not much," he admitted with a crooked smile. "Been up most of the night thinking. Trying to find the right words." He twisted his hat in his hands. "I'm not good with words like you are, Maria. You can talk to anyone, make them feel comfortable, understood? Me? I'm better with my hands, with doing rather than saying." "Then show me," Maria said softly. Jake descended the steps until they were standing close enough that she could smell the scent of sage and leather that seemed to follow him everywhere. "I came to Redemption Ridge running from a life that wasn't mine anymore. Lost my family's ranch back in Montana to debt and bad decisions. Lost my father to grief after my mother passed. Felt like I'd failed at everything that mattered." He paused, his jaw working. Maria waited, sensing that these were words he'd needed to speak for a long time. "Then I rode into this town, and you were the first person I met. You were standing outside this very trading post, and you smiled at me like I was worth something, even though I was just a dusty stranger on a tired horse. You gave me directions, but you also gave me something else, hope that maybe I could start over, be someone better than the man I'd been." "Jake. Let me finish," he said gently. "Please. I've been practicing this all night." He took a breath. "I fell for you that day too, Maria. But I was so sure you'd never want someone like me. Someone who'd failed. Someone who came from nothing and was trying to build something from even less. So I did the only thing I knew how, I worked. Worked my ass off at the Double R, saved every penny, bought that land, and started building a house." "A house," Maria repeated, still trying to wrap her mind around what he'd told her last night. Jake nodded, reaching into his shirt pocket and pulling out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her, and she opened it with shaking fingers. It was a hand-drawn sketch of a house, not fancy, but solid and beautiful, with a wide porch and large windows designed to catch the sunset. In the corner, in Jake's careful handwriting, were the words, "For Maria, if she'll have me." Tears blurred Maria's vision. "You wrote my name on your house plans?" "On everything," Jake said, his voice rough with emotion. "The house is built for you, with a studio space for your jewelry making, because I've seen the beautiful pieces you sell in the trading post. A kitchen that faces east, because you told me once that you like to drink your coffee watching the sunrise. A garden spot, because your grandmother mentioned you've always wanted space to grow traditional medicines." Maria pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. "You paid attention to all of that?" "I've paid attention to everything about you for 2 years, Jake said simply. Every word, every smile, every time you tucked your hair behind your ear when you were concentrating on something. I memorized you, Maria, because I loved you and I was too scared to do anything about it except build you a future and hope that someday I'd be brave enough to offer it to you." "Why didn't you?" she whispered. "Why didn't you say something?" Jake's laugh was self-deprecating. "Because I'm an idiot, like you said last night. Because I convinced myself that loving you from a distance was better than risking rejection. Because," he stopped, his voice catching. "Because you're the first thing that's mattered to me since I lost everything, and I was terrified of losing you too." Maria looked at the drawing again, at the careful details that showed just how much attention he'd paid to who she was and what she needed. Not what he thought she should want, but what she actually valued. It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her, and he'd done it in silence, in secret, building his love into every nail and board. "My grandmother has a saying," Maria said, carefully folding the drawing and holding it against her heart. "She says that love is like the desert, it can look empty and harsh from a distance, but up close, it's full of life and beauty and things that have learned to thrive in difficult conditions." Jake smiled, really smiled, and the sight of it made Maria's heart soar. "Your grandmother is a wise woman. She also says that the strongest plants in the desert are the ones that grow together, their roots intertwining underground where no one can see, supporting each other through droughts and storms." Maria took a step closer, closing the last bit of distance between them. "We've both been growing alone, Jake. Hiding our roots, protecting ourselves. Maybe it's time we tried growing together. I'd like that, Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. God, Maria, I'd like that more than anything. Then show me the house, Maria said, surprising herself with her boldness. Show me what you built for us. The drive to Jake's property took 20 minutes, winding through desert landscape painted in shades of amber and rust. Maria followed in her truck, giving herself time to process everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. Her head still ached, but her heart felt lighter than it had in years. The house sat on a rise overlooking a canyon, exactly where Jake had described. It wasn't finished. Maria could see exposed framing in places, stacks of materials waiting to be used, but the bones of it were beautiful. Strong. Honest. Jake led her through the structure, pointing out features he'd incorporated specifically with her in mind. The studio space with north-facing windows for perfect light. The covered porch where they could sit on summer evenings. The master bedroom positioned to catch the sunrise. It's perfect, Maria said, standing in what would be the living room, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. It's everything I didn't know I wanted. There's one more thing, Jake said, and she heard nervousness creep back into his voice. He led her to the kitchen, where a small box sat on the windowsill. I bought this 6 months ago. Told myself I was crazy, that I should return it, that I'd never have the guts to give it to you. But I couldn't seem to let it go. Maria's hands trembled as she opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple and beautiful, with a turquoise stone the exact color of the desert sky. Turquoise, the sacred stone of her people, representing wisdom and protection. I'm not asking you to marry me right now, Jake said quickly. I know we have things to figure out, time to spend actually being together instead of loving each other from across rooms and through unspoken words. But I wanted you to know that I'm serious about this. About you. About us. Maria slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, of course it did.